Thank you for joining me for this episode on grieving, 3 tips for keeping it together. I'm Brian Crump, owner of Grasons of Johns Creek and Grasons of Tucker. We serve clients across Metro Atlanta who need to clear out possessions from a house with an estate sale or a clean out. Now, first, let me address a question that may be on your mind. What would someone who does estate sales have to say about grieving? Let me give you 3 qualifications to validate that I have something helpful to share. First, I have a master's degree in psychology, but I decided not to become a therapist because I wanted to be more involved in people's lives than just meeting them once a week in the therapy room. Second, I have personal experience with grief. I've lost several loved ones, and I've lost a teenager who is like a little brother to me. So I'm familiar with the complexities of grieving. Third, my wife is a hospice social worker, and we've led grief groups together. And I hope that the tips that I share today will be helpful to you. Another thing I want to address is the diversity of my audience. You may be anywhere on the spectrum from I'm very aware of my emotions and really want to press in and understand the emotions that I'm going through as I grieve, to the other end of I'd really like to set this aside and move on with my life. Wherever you are on that spectrum, I think the advice and the tips that I'm going to share today may be helpful to you. So let's dive in. First tip is to recognize the dual nature of grief. You're both busy and there's heightened emotion, especially if you're the executor of the estate and you're handling things like the funeral and the will and managing the estate, selling the house, things like that. You have a lot of extra responsibility added to your plate. So your life has just gotten much busier. And also there's heightened emotion as you're grieving the loss of your loved one in this busy season that you don't really have much time to stop and feel. So you may find yourself more irritable with loved ones, and it's helpful to recognize that and step back in the moment and recognize this isn't about them or what they did. I have a lot going on under the surface, and that's why this came up so easily. So recognize the dual nature of this season of grief. Second tip is to be patient and gracious with yourself. You'll come across things that trigger memories that stir strong emotions. Sometimes anger will come up, other times guilt and regret, sometimes there's sadness over your loss, and many other emotions. Take a break, set aside the task you're working on, and give yourself time to process that in the moment. That's your mind trying to process your grief, and you need to take time to do that. On the reverse side, there will be times that you may find yourself diving into the busyness and wanting to use it to avoid the emotions that you'd rather not be feeling right now. And that can be okay too. Give yourself the freedom to say, not right now. I want to focus on what I'm doing right now. It's okay as long as you're creating space to process your grief. It's okay to set it aside sometimes. Now, the third tip is to look up resources that can help you. The first thing I'd suggest that you Google is the Kubler-Ross grief cycle. And that's simply so you can glance at all the different aspects of grieving that you are likely going to experience. So you know it's coming and you know in the moment, I'm not going crazy. This is normal. This is what people go through as they're grieving a loss. The second type of resource that I would recommend is exercises, grieving exercises related to particular emotions and memories that are coming up for you. For example, one exercise that I used for regret was to sit down with pen and paper and write out a letter to the loved one I lost and then read it out loud. No one else has to be around. Just read it out loud as a way of expressing what it is you want to express to your loved one. And then burn the letter as a way of saying, this is done. I can move on from this. It's a powerful exercise. And there are a lot of exercises like that out there. And you can find those if you just search for them. And then also look up the support you need, the local support you need. So if you want to talk with a counselor about your grief, that can be helpful. And or if it'd be helpful just to talk with other people who are going through a similar journey, find a local support group, a grief support group that you can find other people to talk to. So I hope these three tips are valuable to you and help you press into and move through your journey of grief. I hope you're able to find a deeper awareness of yourself, a deeper compassion for other people who are on a similar journey, and a deeper connection with your loved one you lost.